Scissor 7, or Killer 7 because I spelled Scissor wrong 6 out of 10 times. Turns out it's not about the 7 Scissor, so that's pretty disappointing. Instead, it's about this guy with amnesia called 7 who can shapeshift into anything, so he decides to become an assassin and hopes to make enough money to get an operation and remember stuff, I guess. And this is where I come in telling you about how good it is, because that's kind of the thing I do with this channel. Releasing in 2018, Killer 7, not to be confused with the game by the same name, is a Chinese animated streaming series, and from my experience of watching 3 Chinese shows, 2 out of 3 times they have startlingly good animation. This one honestly surprised me though, because it wasn't just eye candy. It was actually pretty funny and managed to make me care about the characters, unlike a lot of shows known for the pretty animation, and I think that's a great change of pace. It was written by Xiaofeng He. Watch me mess up all of the Chinese in this video, by the way. I honestly just watched it because I thought it looked interesting, and lo and behold my surprise the minute it began and reminded me of Mob Psycho and One Punch Man, because quite honestly, at a glance it really seems like a fusion between the 2 shows. I mean, the boring looking main protagonist with incredible power, the characters relating to each other in a realistic and hurtful way, the idea that people involved are all ranked under a ranking, a guy who has to choose between his powers and his ideals, stuff like that. It's difficult not to make the connection, and yet for some reason I can't help but think that this show is underrated enough for me to say everybody who agrees with all that I just said is a complete idiot. Yeah, I know, that was a surprising 180. But it's true! The series is rather monstrous with its abilities at everything an animated show is supposed to do. How dare someone actually say it's just Chinese Mob Psycho? It's a completely different thing, save for the psychic aspects. Though, in all fairness, I can't even judge the people who make the comparison because the show has such a small following that it's rather hard to explain what it's all about without drawing a comparison in the first place, simply because it will facilitate the explanation tenfold given how little actual confidence people get to have while talking about it. It's just easier to recommend a popular show because the popularity itself becomes part of the reason to watch it. So naturally people decide to say it's like
something else
to assign the popularity value of
something else,
essentially giving an extra reason for people to watch it. So this video has 2 purposes. The first and most important one is to hopefully bring more people to watch this amazing show. The second one is to shut up all of the people who compare it to Mob Psycho once and for all, because for as much as I love Mob Psycho, I believe this one's miles better. Come on, hit me. Ah, not like that, you idiot! Why would you do that? I meant to start the video! Okay, so just look at the animation to start. They just made posing in place look powerful. How? He is just standing there. You know how other channels start talking about animation and praise the shit out of it? Yeah, no, I don't need to do that here because I bet you can already see it yourself. I've seen several people say the animation is messy, and to be honest, they'd be right. They went for a hand-drawn style that really doesn't try to polish every single frame of animation, but that's also one of the biggest strengths. It's not that they didn't know how to draw the characters, right? They actually clearly show that they can't do the way some characters look. It's just that every character is designed with stylization and versatility in mind, leading to every character pretty much having even their own line width. The show style shines brightest during the battle, not just in the way they are animated and how they play out, but also through the choreography and timing, which is impeccable. Just look at this delay between the guy hitting the ground and the ground reacting to the hit. That shit feels better than getting your 4th refill at the fast food place, knowing full well that you barely managed to drink the 3rd. I'm talking you can feel the strength of each punch, the length of each movement, and the sheer quantity of full combo attacks with Donkey Kong Country beatdowns at the end. Talking about timing, because you'll keep seeing the godly animation in the video and it's pointless for me to explain what you can see, it's not just during the fights that the timing is perfect, but even sometimes the timing is used to make killer comedy, pun not intended. Okay, so there's this part in episode 2 or something like that where 7 has to poke a dog's eyes out. So it starts with a joke about the dog's design. Then it goes on with a joke about 7's personality. Then it makes a joke about 7's job. Then it repeats the personality joke, establishing a pattern. The no, screw you yoga kick. Which fails, just like the pattern said it would. And then surprise! There's your punchline after 6 punchlines. Comedy. Shows with good comedy do this all the time, but they use a punchline as the setup for the next joke. And this is just one example in the entire show. There's a certain episode where they draw the punchline out for an entire episode and it still hits you after all that time. It's just amazing and probably one of the main things I see different from Mob Psycho, but more on why later. But I mean, really, the timing this show has is positively scary. Every action lasts almost exactly what it should. Just look at, for example, this guy turning. Yeah, I don't have a single clue about who the guy turning is as of recording this audio. I'm just that confident that they even nailed this type of pointless timing. And since I've already used to talking about timing transition, it's time we talk about something that you regularly talk about when you talk about a show. Talk about way to say it. You get it, don't talk about it. Characters are fun. I should probably talk about some of them, shouldn't I? Okay, I'll stop. The bird's the best one. He gets practically one of the hypest arcs in the series. So basically, Dai Bo is a chicken. What do you do with chicken? You eat it. It's gonna be pretty tasty. My favorite is Kentucky Fried. But some chickens don't get eaten because they fight. So in this world, they eat chicken just as they do in real life world. So the boy decides to move into Chicken Island, the main location of the series, since people don't eat chicken there, fittingly. Seven lives there, so Dai Bo begins using Seven to earn money, making him not only the bluest, but also the first character to become a series regular. Honestly, I love his arc because of how exciting yet dark it is, but it also highlights one of my favorite aspects of what the show does with its character development. See, shows often have a hard time making development feed into a timeline. The usual is to use the start of the series as the start of the development, rather than start the show at a significant point in the timeline where development has happened and will happen. Dai Bo's arc really has a nice perk in the way it showcases this aspect of the writing simply through the reactions of the character on several situations. He has an arc that happens before the first episode of the show, where we get to see his origins, relationships, and sense of morality. Also, he has the amazing animation and Dai Bo looks sick in his transformed form. Just look at this man, Bert Cuba. It's not only Dai Bo who gets this treatment, though not all characters do. Another great character is 13. She's even got a few OVAs to her name and really helps the writers build the world. There's, for example, this girl named Kola who has a really heartwarming arc. There's this bodyguard who I internally call Steve for some reason, and he also stops a goddamn missile. There's this old lady who is into some Naruto martial art thing and is like the third strongest character in the show. There's this submarine captain with infinite hair length. There's an old lady. You get it, there's a lot of characters, some of which get more development time than others, but still they all manage to make an impact on the overall plot when it's relevant. As for the music, I can tell you it's good because it also has its own little personality, though I don't often spend too much time talking about soundtrack when we discuss an entire show. I'll just point out how skillful this soundtrack is at going from crappy and casual guitar pluck to insane electric guitar riffs that will change your perspective of life, allowing you to look at the very fabric of the universe. So for a short review, the music is sick. So, are you getting what I've been putting down? Scissor 7 has one spectacular characteristic in every single aspect I talk about so far, and that is its speed at shapeshifting. 1 second it's a comedy, then it's an action show, then it's a drama, suddenly it's a slice of life, now it's sci-fi. Look, it's wuxia, wait, that's a real genre. And sometimes the switches are all within a single 11-minute episode. The best part, however, is within how smooth the transitions are. I actually wonder how many writers could pull off a transition without making everything seem too jarring. This gives the show a sense of unpredictability and variety that strings the viewer along from one topic to another seamlessly, removing any nonsense or empty space that the show doesn't really need. The best part about all this is how dynamic shapeshifting allows for a proper way of building towards events. As episodes get more serious, less comedy is utilized and the visual style of the show, from color palettes to animation budget, becomes completely different. One of the ways this is most evident actually happens to be through Seven's design, which changes almost entirely in a manner that is completely logical to the universe. Besides, a lot of the undertones are never explained and are actually left for the viewer to understand through simple show don't tell. This is one of the main differences it has from One Punch Man, by the way, where a lot of undertones there are a critique towards anime tropes. Here there's no intention to make fun of anybody or anything specific. Furthermore, in showcasing how this isn't One Punch Man, the strength scaling on the antagonist is also different. While One Punch Man, at least in the anime, still relies on the idea that Saitama will kill almost everything in one punch, Scissor 7 actually has 7 learn new skills and adapt in order to defeat the next antagonist, making the power levels much more balanced than within One Punch Man, leading to a character who has a completely different view on fighting. I'd say the only real similarity between the two of them is under the design aspect of a few characters, which is a tiny similarity, so... As for Mob Psycho 100, I think Mob's comedy is heavily reliant on characters, while Killer 7 keeps switching between stuff like characters, situations, or visuals in a seamless motion, which is difficult to achieve, as we've already said. Mob Psycho is also centered on the coming of age aspects. Given how most of the psychics we meet there are actually just teenagers, well, Scissor 7 takes a character-driven approach more related to the sheer diversity of people, who more often than not have good intentions at heart. But when it comes to heart, I think the main difference between both shows is how Scissor 7 is almost entirely a passion project. Mob Psycho, as cool as it looks, still has the limitations of commercialization. Killer 7 avoids the issue entirely because it doesn't really actually air on TV. It's a web series only available through streaming, so it has a lot more freedom with its direction, giving the series a huge advantage. Just think about it, when people don't realize that this web show is actually a web show, you've done something right. You can see the soul in Mob Psycho, but you can only see the heart in Killer 7. And I think that's the perfect difference Scissor 7 has from all the anime it's often compared to. This show should really be beyond comparison, and we should feel more confident discussing this masterpiece for its own merits, rather than those of another show. So, if you haven't seen Scissor 7, what are you waiting for, you crazy person? Go watch it! And if you have, well, watching this video should tell you exactly what to do. Okay, sorry, I can't hold it in any longer. I need to make the lesbian joke. It's 7 lesbians having sex!